Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Discourse. My name is Brendan Lotz, and today we have a very special guest with us. We are chatting to the COO of We Think Code, Sethu Komani. As you know, at Hypertext this month, it's all about skills development and education, and who better to chat about that than one of the biggest software development educators in South Africa. And an organization that I really, really love. We've been following their journey for many years here at Hypertext. To chat about that, we have Sethu Komani. How are you today, Sethu?
Hi, Brendan. I'm well, thanks. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's a great pleasure. Sethu, I'm wondering if you could maybe just tell us a bit about yourself, where you studied, and also what you do at We Think Code.
Sure. So I'm Sethu Komani. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at We Think Code. Essentially, I oversee all of our partnerships with our different funding partners. Those range from foundations, from corporates that are wanting to create a pipeline of talent for themselves and invest in skills development, as well as more recently, public sector investment and grant funding into tertiary education. My background has largely been in marketing and communications and branding. I also have a master's in business administration from the University of Cape Town. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because of my background, but also because of the firm beliefs that I have about, education and qualification as I am in my role now at We Think Code and the kind of advocacy we do to create access to opportunities for our students.
Yeah. So I think an important point to kind of start this conversation is that when I was growing up, which granted was many years ago at this point, but when I was going through high school, I remember my parents telling me that you need a degree in order to get a good job. And as great as that was 10, 50, or not even 50, we're going 20 years now at this point. As great as that advice is, I think today in South Africa, that reality, or learners and students need to face the reality that as much as a degree is great, universities that offer degrees are really in short supply. There's not enough space for all the kids who matriculate. So I want to maybe just ask you, because you deal in this space, in this sector every day, is that thinking that you need a degree to be successful still one that kind of pervades in South Africa?
I think in South Africa, socially, we value university degrees very much, and that's why there's that pressure. I know you alluded to your own history, but even today, there's a lot of pressure for young people to go and get a university degree because there's a social construct that we hold very near and dear to us, many of us, that a university degree almost guarantees you a job. I think specifically in the space of tech, software development, programming, coding, I think it's becoming less of a requirement to have a degree specifically because technology in particular changes like almost every 6 months. You have to be learning all the time. A degree can potentially get you started, but if you're not a lifelong learner, it could put you in a kind of stalemate in terms of your career progression. And so I think that's why at We Think Code, we emphasize that not just training students in technology, but training them to desire to learn and to teach themselves to learn always, because that's the nature of the job when it comes to software development. And I think in South Africa, where perhaps our university qualifications haven't quite kept up with all of the recent changes in technology and the skills kind of requirement within the work environment, I think university students have to be cognizant of the fact that, yes, you can go and get a degree, but if you're not, learning and doing certifications online, if you're not keeping up to date, if you're not on trends, if you're not going to hackathons and applying your knowledge practically, it almost puts you at at a disadvantage when you get into the workplace and they give you a laptop and they tell you to open up the laptop and you're supposed to know where to find all of the different software to do what you need to do. And so we kind of reverse engineered that by throwing our students into the deep end, and we give them a computer and give them a curriculum that is, very much informed by what are the requirements in industry and working backwards from there. And so I think a university degree isn't a need specifically in the tech field. I think there's a growing openness. I think especially globally, and in South Africa, we're catching up to that idea. There's an openness to hiring people that don't have degrees in that space, as long as they have and can show in a kind of tech interview their prowess and their capabilities. That's essentially what gets you the job at the end of the day. And so degrees can help, but I don't think they're a need specifically in the software development space.
So I love what you said there about just continuing to learn, like learning as much as you can, even once you've received your qualification. I think that's so valuable, not just in the tech space, but in many, many different sectors.
Right.
And I feel like that learning, just continuous learning, is sort of made possible by certifications, diplomas that one can pick up from like the likes of AWS or Red Hat and all these different organizations that kind of run the internet, so to speak, these days. A lot of them offer these certifications, and I'm wondering, just as somebody who's not really in that space day to day, but are those certifications kind of, are they perhaps, I don't want to say more valuable than a degree, because a degree does have its own value, right? It shows an employer that you're committed, that you're able to sit down and work. It speaks to a lot of things, not necessarily what that specializes in. But I wonder if these certificates, just building off of what you mentioned, and these certifications from the likes of AWS, obviously there are many more, but how valuable are those when kind of working in the software development and tech space locally?
I think the value of those certifications is that they give you a set of specialized skills, that are industry specific. And so in the case where you gave the example of like AWS, and they're among the kind of top service providers within industry, if somebody has that certification, it definitely can enhance your positioning as a potential candidate. As you said, I don't think they can replace a university degree. And I think depending on, your background, because what's needed is kind of the fundamentals of understanding programming and coding. And then what these certifications enable you to do is to build on top of that a set of skills that are very targeted. That can get you into specific spaces if you do your research well and you find out that the kind of company or even the sector that you want to get into, they generally value this kind of certification. Definitely, it can put you in a good position in terms of being an ideal candidate for the job. I mean, for us at We Think Code, we'd for the longest time just been producing generalists in terms of software developers. And we'd introduced specialized electives a couple years ago, again, for that specific reason of it's no longer good enough to just have a general understanding and knowledge of software development. A lot of our industry partners are looking for specific skill set, whether it's automation, QA testing, or systems integration, or cloud computing. In order to stay ahead of the curve, I think those kind of certifications, specializations definitely do put you at an advantage, whether or not you do have a university degree.
So, Sethu, I want to kind of circle back to what you said about taking the model that universities are using and sort of flipping it on its head at We Think Code. So, how do you guys approach education that it's maybe a bit different to what people usually expect?
So The first thing that stands out is that we have no lecturers. You walk into the first floor of our Joburg campus, and it's just a sea of computers in a room that once used to be a call center.
Oh,
And we have, it's just a sea of desktops and young people who are coding. And so, what we do at We Think Code is on day one, when you start the program, you get assigned a computer, you get assigned into a group of like 6 to 8 people. That group gets assigned a technical mentor. And so, because our program is 16 months long, we kind of split it up into 8 months, which is the first 8 months is first year, the second 8 months is second year. And so, the second year students essentially then mentor various groups of first year students to help them along their journey. And so it's very much a peer to peer, self directed learning model that forces one to apply themselves, right? Rather than rely on, because we don't have textbooks and or any of that, they get all of their learning resources and materials off of our learning management system. At every iteration, in the beginning, it's weekly iterations where you get told this is what's due in the next week. And the performance managers take you through the entire requirements of the assignment. And so it really requires one to be able to problem solve, to think critically, to collaborate with others, ask for help, offer help. We definitely encourage that in our program because software development, I guess, contrary to historical beliefs, is a team sport.
yeah.
It's no longer about, the nerdy guy sitting in a basement by himself in the dark. You're working with different teams that are building the software, teams that are testing the software, teams that are essentially owning the product. And so you need to be able to communicate. So it's not just it's not just sitting in front of a computer and just coding. We do make our students do demos. And so at the end of each of their major modules, there's a demo that they do, and they do a presentation to the staff members. We invite some of our alumni to sit in on those, and some of our partners to sit in on those, and the performance managers. And essentially, they not only learn how to code, but they learn how to present and articulate technical matters to non-technical people, which is a skill that's required.
Yeah.
And so it's a holistic approach that we take to not only giving them the tools to be able to code, but also the tools to be able to work within a normal office environment where you're not going to have the lecturer telling you do this and then do that and read this chapter and that. A lot of it is going to be, okay, I have this much information, there's a gap of information, how do I fill that gap? Do I go and do more research on my own? Do I go and ask my group mates? Do I go and get assistance? Do I sit in on a code clinic or in a workshop to get additional help? But we definitely, I think that's one of the key things that stands out about how we train. And as I mentioned, the second thing is, our curriculum was created by primarily South African practitioners, a couple Americans who have minimum 25 years experience leading teams, running their own businesses, published academia, and all of that. And so they have an understanding of what would they have wanted in a junior developer from day one. And the curriculum was built backwards from there. And so quite a practical curriculum that we constantly get feedback from our partners. When our students go on to internships, we are quite intentional about getting internship host feedback on what did you think about the quality of the student? What did you think about their readiness for the program? Where did you see improvements? So that we can constantly take that feedback and build it back into what we do so we can keep up to pace of the industry. And so I think those are the two main things that stand out, is that, as our own, as an NPC and a private entity, We Think Code is able to take ownership of that curriculum and the learning management system and make sure that it can stay up to date with the changes.
So I really love all of that. I especially love the idea of the collaboration, because because I think that's so important, not just from a future of work, working in an office and working with other people, but I think that it's such an important part of software development, right? Because you're designing software for people. And at the end of the day, if you want to make a successful piece of software or something that can be used by a wide range of people, especially here in South Africa, where we truly are just a melting pot of different cultures and peoples and experiences. I think that getting that kind of that collaborative sense of working, I think, is just so important. Do you see that coming out in the work from your students? Are they a bit more mindful of, hey, well, we got a code for this type of person and this type of person, and make sure that it's usable for as many people as possible? Is that something you're seeing from your students?
Oh, yeah. I think definitely we get a lot of great feedback from our hiring partners who commend the kind of work, the general work readiness, not just that they're able to technically deliver, but their ability to just. I'm actually thinking about one of our partners in the financial services industry gave us some great feedback about an intern that they recently took this year, who was so good that she was tasked by her direct supervisor to work on a presentation that she needed to do for the MD. And did so well on the delivery of the project that the supervisor actually allowed her to present to the MD directly.
Amazing.
It's things like that that make us stand apart, I guess, in the sea of all of the graduates, because our students go into graduate programs oftentimes with other university students. So there's often that feedback about, in comparison to, these were some of the things that we noticed about their getting in and getting started from day one and adding value, which is I think something that we build into the program, and definitely encourage. We've seen it even as their students, they go out beyond what we offer. So primarily they're learning to code in our curriculum in Python and Java. But many of them go on to go and teach themselves other languages because we give them the frameworks to be able
Yeah.
to do so. And so a lot of our students go on and they have side projects. They go out to hackathons and do really, really well in spaces outside of Within Code, which we encourage because we want to build up that confidence so that by the time they're getting hired, there's no sort of imposter syndrome keeping them from,
Yeah.
shining and being their best and trusting that they know how to deliver.
That's amazing. Congrats and props to you guys, because
Thank you.
I think that's something very hard to teach. Is to teach that kind of self-starter mentality, and to inspire somebody to go, well, you're good enough to do this. Why don't you try something else? I think that's so valuable in this day and age where imposter syndrome does bring people down.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that, especially in South Africa, where it can often feel like we're separated from the rest of the world, that maybe you're not going to make as big of a splash on a global stage. But I think that you guys are also imparting that the work that is being done here does matter, and their solutions do matter and can help people. So congratulations to you guys. I think it's something that you should be really, really proud of.
Thank you.
So something I want to ask you, you mentioned Java and Python, but how do you guys keep pace with the rapid evolution of technology? I mean, I just look at how often I have to update my own knowledge base, and it's a full-time job. So I can't imagine how much more difficult it is for somebody like you, or for an organization such as We Think Code. So how do you guys keep up with that? Do you guys meet as an exco and kind of decide where you're going to be going? Do you get feedback from students and employers? How does that work?
I think definitely from our side, the reason why we've been able to keep up is one, our CEO made a decision almost right when she started in 2019 that we needed to change our curriculum. We were originally using an off the shelf curriculum from France that wasn't quite meeting the needs of the South African context from both sides. So, one, the students and the demographic of young people in South Africa don't have the implied base knowledge that French young people have.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of gap filling that needed to be done on the training side. Two, on the placement side, there was a lot of gap filling that needed to be done because industry partners weren't getting the kind of technical skills that they were looking for. And so I think the previous one was working on C++, which isn't as pervasive in South African technology. And so there was an inherent kind of digging and changing that needed to be done at that point in time. And so one, I think, great decision to create our own curriculum, create a curriculum that is created by industry experts. And then, as I mentioned, getting constant feedback from our partners that hire our students to actually find out what are the ways in which we can improve on this. And I think lastly, just internally assessing the relevance of our curriculum based on the critical skills list that is published annually about what are the technical needs that are missing in South Africa.
Yeah.
How can we fill those gaps by introducing specialized electives? And so in 2022 was when we introduced our first set of specialized electives, and now we offer automation QA testing, which is in partnership with System Verification, which is a Swedish QA consultancy, I think best in their field, that side. And so they got on board to help us, build a curriculum that is industry relevant that we could give our students. Likewise, we have mobile application development and systems integration. This year, we're introducing 3 more. Data engineering with a local South African consultancy, Spatial Edge, that's in that space. And then AWS is helping us build out a cloud computing module for that elective, and we're looking at building a blockchain elective. And so our updates are very much informed by what is the demand in the market, where are the gaps, and how can we partner with industry experts to be able to fill up those gaps. And so I think the thing I love about We Think Code is that we aren't an island. We definitely like to collaborate with partners where we can, because at the end of the day, what we do is meant to benefit not just We Think Code, not just the students, not just the corporates, but society as a whole. The fewer, unemployed young people there are, the better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a young person who has a job, they in turn take that money home. They uplift their community by going to restaurants,
Right.
and kind of investing in their community. So it's all just has trickle down effects. So it's great to hear how mindful We Think Code is about how it develops the curriculum, and it's great to hear that these big industry players are getting involved as well, which to me kind of speaks to the fact that they are aware that in order to address the skills shortage, they kind of need to invest in
Yes.
in skills upliftment. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a report that was produced by Harambee and Wits University that estimates that about 40,000 entry-level digital jobs go unfilled annually in South Africa. And in the same breath, in the same report, they estimate about 8 to 10 billion is spent offshore to find the talent that they can't in South Africa. And that's a shame, right? When you look at South Africa and it has a 35% youth unemployment rate, 60% of our population is youth. And so if we don't fix that problem, we are all going to feel the impact of that as a society. And so we're quite excited to have partners in industry that see the value in investing in the work that we're doing to create this tech talent pipeline and to grow this tech talent pipeline so that they can benefit and so the South African economy can benefit as well.
So, building off of that, since the establishment of the Government of National Unity, From our side, we've seen a lot of talk about kind of embracing technology, and not just the sort of, in our opinion, empty talk of the fourth industrial revolution that we've heard for years now, without real investment into digitalization and the kind of digital journey. So, with all of this talk around the GNU's kind of embracing of technology, do you kind of see that there's going to be a boom in demand for people with software development skills, tech literacy, kind of just technology in general? Do you see that coming to the fore?
I think the demand is already there. I think there, just based on the quantity of jobs being unfilled at an entry level, the quantity of money that is leaving South Africa, I think there is opportunity definitely in that space. I'm really excited that this is now coming to the forefront, not just at a kind of high level, as you mentioned, for our
Yeah.
robotic drones level, but at a very intentional, practical level. We're
Yeah.
having conversations about introducing coding at basic education level, which is needed, right? The first time many of our students actually just start using a computer of the magnitude that they do at Within Code is there at boot camp. And
Yeah.
so we want that to be less and less of the case going forward. And the only way we can do that is by introducing young people to code and computers and all of that early on.
Yeah.
So, I think we set ourselves back and put us in a disadvantage when we don't make these resources available. And I think that I welcome that intention from the GNU to move in that direction. But I also hope that the intention, phases into a practical implementation space, uh, that, that we're intentional about engaging the people in these spaces that are winning, that are doing really great things in this space, teaching young people who otherwise would have been excluded from being able to, access quality tertiary education. I think that's what I'm hoping comes out of this, and that we're no longer just having beautiful policies. And I've read quite a few of the policy papers around, the digitization of South Africa and the digital transformation and the intention. So the intention is there, but my hope is that we can move from intention to implementation, because we don't have time anymore to just have, beautiful policy papers and nice discussions with lots of buzzwords.
Yeah.
We need to move, right? We need to work together to identify the areas of need, to come up with a practical strategy of scale and partnership. And I think from our side at We Think Code, we definitely welcome that, especially now. I mean, we've recently started working with public sector partners to try and scale the magnitude of what we do beyond our, private campuses and our private sector funders. And so we've been, partnering with TVET colleges to see how can we meet each other's needs. We Think Code sees the opportunity to scale, but we're a nonprofit. We don't have the kind of money to just have a footprint everywhere.
Yeah.
There are 50 registered TVET colleges in South Africa with over, I think it's 340 campuses across urban, peri-urban, and rural areas in South Africa. That's a huge footprint that unfortunately is currently in the field of ICT not delivering at the level that it has a potential to.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
yeah. Sorry, carry on.
and so we see value in partnering with TVET colleges, because they have the footprint to reach the people who otherwise, if they were coming to We Think Code in Joburg, have to move out of their province, have to find a place to stay. Joburg is expensive.
Yeah.
Have to now feed themselves. They don't have family support here. They're new to this place. And for many, it's like the first time in a big city. How do we bring what we deliver closer to home? How do we bring quality tech training closer to home? And subsequently, looking towards that, we're also considering how do we bring then placement opportunities closer to home. Because it's all tied together. We recruit from the community, we want to train in the community, we ideally would like to place in the community. And so I think that's the kind of potential we have with being intentional about implementing all of these various policies around digital transformation and massifying tech skills in South Africa.
Yeah, I fully get what you're saying, 100%, and stand by it. I mean, just from our experience, we've seen a number of digital businesses that kind of operate in the gig economy. So the one that comes to mind is a delivery service that operates in townships. And they kind of fulfill restaurant deliveries and store deliveries from within townships, kind of uplifting that community, creating jobs, driving business to the businesses that they are doing deliveries for. It's spectacular to see how these solutions are embraced.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to that as long as there's will, people can and will use these services. So it's great to hear that you guys are kind of partnering with TVETs, and I hope that more and more TVET colleges kind of come to organizations like We Think Code and say, well, how can we assist you? How can you assist us? And kind of work in this collaborative thing. Once again, that collaboration, which I think is such a core of technology these days. So it's great to hear. And how many TVETs are you guys looking at working with? I assume eventually you would like to be working with as many as possible.
Yeah, so last year we piloted with 2 TVET colleges. That has since grown with the signing of about 5 more.
Oh, wow.
And so we are engaging more and more TVET colleges. We're hoping to formalize it a little bit more so that we're not knocking down individual doors and going through the process all over again by, partnering more intentionally at the DHET level around our scaling strategy so that we can formalize it a little bit more and have some sort of preparedness list for the TVETs to get ready for a We Think Code implementation. And so at this point, we have TVET colleges in Gauteng, so in Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Soweto. We also are looking at expanding in the Western Cape to Stellenbosch, the coast, the Atlantic coast, as well as we're actually opening our first rural TVET college in the Garden Route in a little town called Riversdale.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, we're looking at KZN as well. I'm talking to a few TVET colleges there that are quite interested in adopting the program as well. And so, yeah, it's been a rapid kind of acceleration from our side, and so we're really looking forward to implementing each of those instances so that we can build a stronger case for that collaboration at DHET level so that we can formalize these structures and be, like I said, intentional about the implementation so that we can support all of the different plans, the strategies, the national development plan, and actually manifest those intentions.
So, Sethu, what more would you like to see coming from government side? You guys partner with a lot of players in the private sector, but in terms of the public sector, what would We Think Code really appreciate from the side of government in terms of investment or anything really?
I guess from our side, what we're looking to achieve is to collaborate and work more formally with the Department of Higher Education in terms of the TVET expansion. This for us right now, the way it's structured is that we get our grant funding partners and they're interested in this piloting of scale, because they want to see, because they've supported us in the past and they've seen how much we've grown and our capability of delivering, when we presented to them this idea of scaling through TVETs, they were for it. And so we have a lot of our private partners that have in the initial phases been able to say, okay, we'll help fund implementation at this TVET college. So we find the funding, we find the TVET, we sign the MOU with the TVET, we sign the agreement with the funding partner, and then we implement. And so there's a lot that We Think Code does and is responsible for at this point in time, and we're hoping that through a more formal and structured partnership at the DHEAD level, we'll be able to sort of pivot into more of a service delivery, into more of a service delivery kind of partnership, where funds are made available for TVET colleges that want to implement, the We Think Code program at their campuses, and they then have to sort of fulfill some sort of a tick list of readiness, and then We Think Code comes in and essentially implements. And so that then becomes a way for We Think Code to become more sustainable, in terms of being able to generate revenue that then goes into the kind of private research hubs that we have, which are the backbone of what we do. As I mentioned, they are responsible for keeping the curriculum up to date, updates to the learning management system, and making sure that what we're delivering to young people is relevant to the market. And so from a government kind of an ideal, what do we want out of that? That's what we're hoping to get. And I know there's a lot of, momentum in that direction. The CETAs have been introducing for our labs at the TVET colleges. And so they're wanting to utilize these labs and make sure that they're being, that their investment is being leveraged. And so there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of really great intention at government level, but I do see an opportunity for support and partnership from implementers that have a history in delivering in this space.
Well, I'll hold thumbs for that and hope that becomes the case, because I think that's a really clever model that you've just pitched there. If I was in government, I would say let's go ahead. But I'm not in government, unfortunately, so take that with a grain of salt. So, Sethu, I just want to ask, so you guys have been growing your cohorts every year since you started. This year, the 2024 cohort, 360 students will be eligible to graduate, which is immense. It's mega, really. And I just want to find out, how do you guys select who's going to be participating in the academy every year? What sort of qualities are you looking for? Qualifications, if any? How do you guys select that?
Right. So we have an interesting selection process. We don't look at prior qualifications, experience. About 60% of our students have never coded in their life before meeting We Think Code. And so what we do at the start is that we invite young people to apply. At the start of that is an online assessment test that they have to take, which takes about an hour long. And essentially this test gives us an indication of their ability to think critically, to problem solve, to think analytically. And so it gives us a real-time sense of what their brains can do. And if they pass that, then they get invited to a boot camp at one of our campuses. And so we run weekly 6-day boot camps from Monday to Saturday. That's when we start introducing them to coding fundamentals. And what we do in that week is that we're actually looking for their ability to learn. And so we're watching their learning curve. Is it going up? Is it kind of stagnant? Is it going down? Are they absorbing the content that we're giving them, and are they able to apply it? And so in that 6 days, essentially they're learning enough coding principles that by the end of it, they'll be able to either build a game called Hangman or a calculator, a functioning calculator.
Okay.
And so we examine them at the end of that 6 days, and that gives us a pretty good indication, alongside some feedback that we get from our technical mentors who help facilitate the boot camps. It gives us a holistic picture of their readiness for the program, did they lean into the kind of peer-to-peer environment? Because we're also looking at that. And obviously, technically, how did they perform? And so after they pass that 6-day boot camp, we then enroll them, we make an offer to enroll into the program. And essentially that's the selection process that enables us to achieve, 52% women inclusion in our current cohort.
Awesome.
And about 90% of our students are coming from low-income households. 60% of those are actually coming from extreme low-income households, earning less than 75,000 Rand per annum for an average household size of about 5 people.
Ooh.
And so that's the kind of demographic that we're targeting and trying to make opportunities for. That's the kind of demographic that, university for them is unreachable because, one, they may have gone to a school that wasn't very well resourced. And so that the results don't quite match the requirements of universities. And that precludes them from, accessing university level education. And then two, likewise, many of them coming from, underserved communities and low-income households where, no one can afford to sponsor them to go to university, and they'll have to rely on, student loans, grants, and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, our selection process is quite rigorous, but it helps us weed out the people who are very, very talented and show a good potential to learn how to code, which is essentially what we're assessing them for. Because we can't really assess them for their ability to code because we want to teach them to code, and so we're assuming that they don't know how to. So how do we assess for something that we know that they don't have? And so that's how we run our selection process. And so at the beginning of the pipeline, we get about 30 to 40,000 applications. That dwindles down to about 500 at the end of that. And so, yeah, it's quite a competitive one. Yesterday, I was welcoming the new cohort that just started, so the new 2024 cohort that started now.
Yeah.
And just asked, like, how many people have applied to We Think Code? And this was like your second, third, or fourth time. And there were about a few people who it was actually their fourth try and they got in.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that speaks to how valuable this institution is, though. That people are trying so hard to get in here, and also to the value that you are providing. I think that as competitive as it is and as limited the space is, I think that speaks to just how well you guys are doing. So again, congratulations. Yeah, really, really amazing. So I want to now, just to wrap up, if I'm an organization and I like what I hear that's happening here, how can I get involved? How can I provide workplace opportunities, provide sponsorship? What's the best way to get in touch with We Think Code in that regard?
So you can get in touch with me, Sethu at wethinkcode.co.za. If you're looking to partner with We Think Code, either to sponsor a headcount of students. And so we invite sponsorship for partners that are wanting to either use skills development levy or other sources of funding to be able to sponsor tuition for students. The other thing is, if you are looking to hire, you can get in touch and we can assist in facilitating a matching process whereby you tell us your needs in terms of skills, and then we can select a short list of young people that are available to be hired for you. And so for either one of those kind of engagement opportunities, they can get in touch with me at Sethu. It's Sethu at wethinkcode.co.za.
Fantastic. We'll type that out in the story that accompanies this podcast. But Sethu, thank you so much for joining us. I think you've provided some great insight here, given us a greater idea of how software development is being invested in South Africa, and particularly what We Think Code is doing to kind of bring up the next round of software developers in South Africa and empower the youth. I can imagine you guys have a number of stories that would make
Oh yeah.
A burly man like me weep because they're just so heartwarming. But yeah, please continue doing the great work that you do. I really hope that more TVETs come online and join the cause that you guys are championing. Yeah, the world is only getting more digital, so it's great to see an organization like We Think Code really embracing what's needed to bring about that revolution and working literally at the grassroots. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been truly, truly insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation, Brendan. It's been a pleasure sharing the We Think Code story with you. And yeah, definitely would love to share some of those other stories with you at a later date because there are so many of them. And even as somebody that's working at We Think Code, it brings me to tears sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of the stories that come out of the program from our
Happy
students.
tears, I hope. Like the stories that have a happy ending.
Like super proud, happy
Yeah.
tears to see people just overcoming challenges and just being more than what they thought they could be.
Yeah.
We'll save that conversation for another time.
Yes, yeah. I'm not emotionally prepared, but thank you so much, Sethu. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us. And we'll chat again soon.